Welcome to ASIO and welcome to the Ben Chifley Building, and welcome to my second annual threat assessment. The decision to hold this event here at our headquarters is a deliberate one. It's a sign of my continued determination to make ASIO more open and transparent. Now, visitors to this building are often surprised how normal our people look. The Hollywood version of spies and spy catchers is a long way from reality. At ASIO, we need people who can think outside the box. In fact, we need people who can get inside the box without being detected, rather than people who could pepper that box with bullets. So while my purpose tonight is to update you on the threat environment and what ASIO is doing about it, I also want to explain why we need these people who can think outside the box. Agility and ingenuity are at the core of ASIO's operations. We go up against sophisticated foreign intelligence and sophisticated adversaries that are effectively unconstrained by law, resource, and ethics. We need to out-imagine and out-manoeuvre them. We go up against extremists who are security-aware and tech-savvy. We need to be able to know what they are plotting and see what they are doing, and always lawfully, of course. So ASIO officers are expected to do extraordinary things, but it's really important to know that they're ordinary people. At work, they will routinely do things that you and our targets think are impossible. But after work, like the rest of us, they face the same challenges, worries and duties that we all have. They're your neighbours, they're your friends, they're members of your community, they pay mortgages, they coach sporting teams, they care for loved ones, and volunteer to fight fires and patrol beaches. Our people include former nurses, teachers, tradies, musicians, and engineers, and yes, even journalists. I've got a few of those, just saying. Similar profession, actually. I'm determined to ensure ASIO reflects the community we serve. ASIO is your security service. We're headquartered here in Canberra, but we live and operate in every state and territory, as well as a dozen other countries. To deliver on our mission, we desire and require diversity. And while I'm proud of the strides we have taken, particularly reaching or achieving gender equality in our senior executive ranks, we still have a lot of work to do. We need greater diversity in our workforce, and we need your help to get there. If you want to make a difference, and you're a lateral or critical thinker, creative thinker, chances are you're the kind of person we're looking for. In fact, we're recruiting now for roles that go at the core of what we do, protecting Australians by stopping terrorists and catching spies. I encourage any curious techies to look at our Technologist graduate program. You might be surprised at the breadth of technology we work with. We've also opened our intelligence round for aspiring intelligence officers and analysts. So if you think you're not ASIO's type, let me assure you there is no ASIO type, other than being innovative and a problem solver. If that's you, I hope you will apply. Before I talk about Australia's current and future security environment, I'd like to look back on 2020. Like all organisations everywhere, ASIO was affected by COVID-19. And I must take this opportunity to acknowledge the essential services that have been working so hard to keep Australians safe during the pandemic. Our doctors, our nurses and other health professionals and frontline workers richly deserve our admiration and thanks. So too do the brilliant scientists that have led the effort on global research into vaccines. And of course, ASIO also operates on a front line. And it's fair to say the threats to our security did not go away with the onset of COVID. In many areas, they evolved. In some, they intensified. At ASIO, we needed to quickly adapt to our operating environment to ensure our work could continue. And while I can't go into too much detail about how we adapted to the security challenges presented by the pandemic, I can say that it didn't involve much working from home. Despite these challenges that we all faced, we maintained our hold on high priority targets. We kept up with the threat landscape that was shaped by the pandemic, and we reduced harm We protected Australia and Australians from threats to their security. And these threats continue. For those intent on violence, more time at home online meant more time in the echo chamber of the internet on the pathway to radicalisation. There, they were able to access hate-filled manifestos and attack instructions without some of the usual circuit breakers that you get with contact with the community. Extreme right-wing propaganda used COVID to portray governments as oppressors and globalisation, multiculturalism and democracy as flawed and failing. Islamic extremist narratives portrayed the pandemic as divine retribution against the West for perceived persecution of Muslims. For foreign spies, the lack of international travel and reduced social mobility meant their tradecraft evolved. They increased their online activity and approaches. And as our targets changed their modus operandi in response to COVID, we too adapted our methods and approaches. That's a defining feature of ASIO. We adapt quickly because our success and your security depends on it. We're continually innovating and changing tact where we need to and pushing right to the edge of what is possible. We have to stay ahead of terrorists and spies because if our targets know we can do something, we have to be able to do something else. This might seem like the original impossible task, but with the right capabilities and investment, I can assure you our people are up to it. And this will be critical as we all emerge from COVID. Some of our adversaries are seeking to undermine and exploit Australia's recovery. We have already seen extremists trying to stoke social divisions and foreign intelligence services wanting intelligence about Australia's key export, technology and research industries. At ASIO, we stand ready to detect and disrupt these threats. Australia's security underpins Australia's recovery. So what is the security outlook? The environment is complex, challenging and changing. The terrorist threat level remains at probable. We have credible intelligence that groups and individuals have the capability and intent to conduct terrorism onshore. So let me be clear, this threat is significant and this threat isn't going away. Today, there are individuals and groups subscribing to religiously motivated violent extremism that are plotting violence against Australia and Australians. ISIL Media released a video last year referencing the Australian bushfires and encourages arson attacks in the West. It also featured a firearm similar to the weapon used by the Christchurch attacker, with inscriptions such as, "Today we invade you in your own homes," and "The Islamic State is remaining." And late last year, there were 2 religiously motivated terrorist attacks in Australia. In December, Raji Abdi, a radicalised ISIL supporter, allegedly murdered an elderly couple in their Brisbane home. And in October, a Bangladeshi woman, already incarcerated for a terrorist attack, allegedly cited ISIL as the inspiration for a stabbing attack of another inmate. And there have been disruptions, and this is where we work very closely with our law enforcement partners. In March 2020 in Sydney, an individual was charged with acts in preparation for a terrorist attack. In November, the police charged another individual with planning to undertake a terrorist attack in the Bundaberg region. And in February this year, in New South Wales, an individual was arrested and charged with 2 counts of acts done in preparation for or planning a terrorist attack. And you've seen the recent press out of Melbourne today. And let me use that opportunity to acknowledge the excellent work of Victorian Police and the Australian Federal Police. It's another example of this threat is real, and another disruption occurred today thanks to the excellent work of our police force. Around the world, violent ideologies continue to inspire attacks. In October last year, in Nice, France, an attacker stabbed 3 people to death and 1 was beheaded. In November, in Vienna, Austria, a gunman opened fire with an assault rifle, killing 4 people and injuring 23 others. In addition to the enduring threat from religiously motivated violent extremism is a growing assortment of individuals with ideological grievances. The so-called right-wing extremism has been in ASIO sites for many years, and last year I told you what we'd been seeing. Since then, ideological extremism investigations have grown from around 1/3 of our priority counter-terrorism caseload to around 40%. This reflects both a growing international trend as well as our decision to dedicate more resources to this emerging domestic threat. The face of this threat is also evolving and poses challenges as we seek to identify and monitor it. So people often think we're talking about skinheads with swastika tattoos and jackboots roaming the back streets like extras from Romper Stomper. It's no longer that obvious. Today's ideological extremist is more likely to be motivated by social or economic reasons than National Socialism. More often than not, they're young, well-educated, articulate, middle class, and not easily identified. The average age of our subjects under investigation is 25, and I'm particularly concerned about the number of 15 and 16-year-olds who are being radicalised. They are overwhelmingly male. Investigations into ideological extremism have occurred in all Australian states and territories. Compared to other forms of extremism, it is more widely dispersed across the country, including in regional and rural areas. The extremists are security conscious and adapt their security posture to avoid attention. In their online forums and chat rooms, they show that they're savvy when it comes to what is legal, and they just discuss ways on how they can defeat the system in what they say and do. So ASIO anticipates that the threat from this form of extremism will not diminish anytime soon and may well grow. The online environment is a force multiplier for extremism. It's fertile ground for sharing ideology and spreading propaganda. Ideological extremists are now more reactive to world events such as COVID-19, Black Lives Matter movement, and the recent American presidential election. COVID has reinforced extremist beliefs and narratives about societal collapse and a race war. As a consequence, we are seeing extremists seeking to acquire weapons for self-defence, as well as stockpiling ammunition and provisions. An ideologically motivated terrorist attack in Australia remains plausible, but most likely it will be from a lone actor or small cell rather than a recognised group, and using a knife and a vehicle rather than sophisticated weapons. But of course, to be clear, even a low capability attack can still result in a loss of life. If we see extremists planning or threatening violence, we and our law enforcement partners take action. This threat is real, but it needs to be put into perspective. These groups promote hateful ideologies, but that does not automatically put them in the same category as ISIL or Al-Qaeda. ASIO and our law enforcement partners have a critical job in distinguishing between talk and action, aspiration and capability. At ASIO, we are conscious the names and labels we use are important. Words matter. They can be very powerful in how you frame an issue and how they cause people to think about issues. So from today, we'll be changing the language we use when we talk about violent threats we counter. We will now refer to two categories: religiously motivated violent extremism and ideologically motivated violent extremism. So why are we making this change? Put simply, the current labels are no longer fit for purpose. They no longer adequately describe the phenomenon we are seeing. As an example, thinking about the proliferation of violent groups ascribed to various political ideologies, it's unhelpful to characterise groups such as simply extreme left-wing or extreme right-wing. ASIO does not investigate people solely for their political beliefs. So labels like left and right often distract from the real nature of the threat. Why our views advocated by extremist groups are appalling, as a security service, ASIO's focus is on the threat of violence. In the same way, we don't investigate people because of their religious views. Again, it's the violence that's relevant to our powers, and that's not always clear when we use terms like Islamic extremism. Understandably, some Muslim groups and others see this term as damaging and misrepresentative of Islam and consider that it stigmatises them by encouraging stereotyping and stoking division. Our language needs to evolve to match the threat environment. We're seeing a growing number of groups and individuals that don't fit into the left or right spectrum at all. Instead, they're motivated by fear of a societal collapse or specific social or economic grievance or a conspiracy. For example, Violent misogynists who adhere to the involuntary celibate or incel ideology fall into this category. So we need to use that language that can accommodate the groups that are outside our traditional categories used. Many of our Five Eyes partners have already changed their terminology for similar reasons. So at ASIO, we will use the two categories of religiously motivated violent extremism and ideologically motivated violent extremism. And of course, I should note, these are umbrella terms, and there may be and will be circumstances where we need to call out a specific threat underneath them. But of course, we think this approach more accurately and flexibly describes security-relevant activities that we focus on. So threat to life will continue to be a priority for ASIO, but I also want to talk today about the threats to our way of life, specifically espionage and foreign interference. Countering those threats is a major part of ASIO's mission. Foreign spies are constantly seeking to penetrate government, defence, academia and business to steal classified information, military capabilities, policies, plans and sensitive research. They continue to intimidate members of our diaspora community and are seeking to interfere in our democratic institutions. Over the last 3 years, ASIO has seen espionage and foreign interference attempts against all levels of Australian politics in every single state and territory. As I've said before, espionage is a fairly straightforward concept. It's stealing secrets, and it's the world's second oldest profession. Many countries, including our own, recognise the advantage that comes from having information about plans and intentions of others. And the motivation for foreign states to conduct espionage never goes away. In fact, it heightens during times of tension and conflict. ASIO's mission is to identify espionage where it is happening in Australia and rout it out. Classic espionage techniques, infiltration, coercion, or the recruitment of sources is still the feature of the security landscape we face. Some of the spy cliches, like dead letter drops and writing in code, are real and are used by foreign spies and agents. Last year, an ASIO surveillance team spent a day following a spy around one of our capital cities as that spy scouted for dead letter drop sites. But don't worry, we took notes. More often than not, though, these new classic approaches to espionage are now combined with new technologies. Rather than a spy sidling up to a target in a train station, he or she is now more likely to send a friend request or job offer, or simply spam out a whole lot of messages and wait to see who responds. And sadly, many people respond. Foreign interference is a much more nuanced concept and is often misunderstood. Our view of foreign interference, as defined by law, it refers to actions that are directed by or on behalf of or in collaboration with a foreign power that is either involves a threat to any person, is covert, deceptive or detrimental to Australian interests. Seeking to influence a decision by open lobbying or diplomacy is not foreign interference, nor is publicly praising a foreign regime, engaging with overseas stakeholders or attending community events. But of course there are points where engagement tips to influence and influence tips to interference. So what have we done about it and what are we doing about it? Last year in my threat assessment, I delivered a pointed message to our adversaries. If you are conducting espionage or foreign interference in Australia, ASIO and our partners will be hunting you. I can report tonight that we have made good on my promise. We have hunted, we have discovered, and we have dealt with multiple attempts from multiple countries. And let me repeat that, multiple attempts, and the key bit is multiple countries. And these are attempts to steal our secrets and undermine our sovereignty. We've used all our human and technical capabilities, our partnerships, legislative instruments at our disposal to discover, disrupt and deter the threats to Australia and Australians. And we have significantly reduced harm. Last year, for example, one of our investigations focused on a nest of spies from a particular foreign intelligence service that was operating in our country. These spies developed targeted relationships with current and former politicians, a foreign embassy and a state police service, They monitored their country's diaspora community. They tried to obtain classified information about Australia's trade secrets. They asked a public servant about information on security protocols at a major Australian airport. They successfully cultivated and recruited a relationship with an Australian government security clearance holder who had access to sensitive details of defence technology. ASIO acted. We investigated, we identified, and we verified this activity. We cancelled the government employee's security clearance, and we confronted the foreign spies and quietly and professionally removed them from our country. And before you jump to any conclusions, and to underline my point about its multiple countries trying to conduct espionage and foreign interference in Australia, I must point out that this Foreign Intelligence Service was not from a country in our region. And I'm not going to name who it was. That would be an unnecessary distraction. Our focus is on detecting harm and dealing with it professionally and privately wherever possible, just as we did in the instance I've described. Now, some people talk about this as a spy game, but as this case just shows, spying is not a game. It's acutely serious. Our secrets, our sovereignty, and our safety are all at stake. So, of course, when some commentators insinuate that ASIO should turn a blind eye to espionage and foreign interference to avoid upsetting the spy's government, they're not just suggesting that laws should not be enforced. They're suggesting that these sorts of deeply damaging activities should be left unchecked. I completely reject that approach. When ASIO finds a nest of spies, we will deal with what we find. This is just one example, and in the last 12 months, a significant number of foreign spies and their proxies have either been removed from Australia or rendered inoperative. And I can't give you exact details for obvious reasons, but I'm talking about a number in the double figures. Together with our partners, we stood up the Counter Foreign Interference Task Force ahead of schedule. Since then, the task force has investigated over 30 cases, and our law enforcement partners have acted on several, including the AFP's first charge of foreign interference in Melbourne late last year. Prosecutions are only one weapon. Our advice also helped Home Affairs cancel a number of visas. And often, us merely questioning a spy or their proxy is enough for them to pack up and flee our country because they know their cover is blown. So while I can't talk about exactly what we do in these cases, let me explain what we do not do when we dismantle a spy ring. We do not operate unlawfully or without oversight. We do not impose arbitrary detention. We do not threaten and intimidate. And we do not investigate journalists for their journalism, academics for their research, or politicians for their politics. While I'm talking about the things we do not do, let me put on the record that we do not investigate peaceful protest. Under law, we're only allowed to focus on demonstrations where violence is planned or likely. Non-violent protest is a component of a healthy democracy. It is not a threat to it. So as I said before, it's the way ASIO does our business that sets us apart. We act ethically within the law, we are proportionate, and we work effectively with our partners. Spying is a race to innovate between spies and the spy catchers, and between those intent on hurting our citizens and those who seek to prevent that hurt. ASIO is particularly skillful at this. We know our success depends on our ability to fuse new technologies, opportunities, and advantages into our existing skill sets so that we can do things in new ways. That imperative to innovate is reflected in all aspects of our business, and we've been changing the way we're structured, how we do our business, to ensure we're the most creative, innovative, and modern organisation we can be. When we're particularly focused on the crest of new world of data, lawfully used, bulk data, modern analytics, and machine learning provide us rich opportunities to be more effective and precise, as well as proportionate in how we do our business. But the environment in which we operate is a challenging one. We're seeing and continue seeing an exponential uptake in encrypted and secure communication platforms by extremists. Even unsophisticated targets are routinely using secure messaging apps virtual private networks, fake emails and number generators to avoid detection. And don't get me wrong, encryption and security is a fundamental force for good, but we need to recognise how it is being used and abused by terrorists and spies. Last year, I revealed that end-to-end encryption damages intelligence coverage in 90% of our priority counter-terrorism caseload. That figure is now 97%. Perhaps at a deeper level, though, there is an essential conundrum in intelligence work. The better you get, the harder it gets. Let me explain what I mean. If we're successful in identifying and disrupting the work of foreign spies or violent extremist groups, they can often reverse engineer what we've done and discover our capabilities. Every time we do our job, we necessarily tip our hand. So what happens then? Our targets bank that knowledge and they change tact. To detect and defeat our adversaries, we have to do things they think are impossible. That applies to whether we're seeking to stop a low-capability terrorist attack or confronting an incredibly well-resourced, sophisticated nation-state. Once they know what we can do, we need to do new things they think are impossible. And that's why we don't talk about our capabilities, and that's why we need to have our laws and capabilities evolve. There is no set and forget in security intelligence. And that's why sometimes ASIO asks for changes to law or investment in new capabilities. We don't do it lightly. We do it because we need to keep technology on our side, not on that of our opponents. For example, last year, the Parliament granted us new laws, allowing us to be more flexible in the use of our less intrusive tracking devices and to compel suspected spies to attend interviews. I can report ASIO has already used one of these powers and will very soon use the other. This is evidence that the evolving threat environment requires evolving capabilities, and we don't ask for new powers and resources unless we need to use them. So as I've explained tonight, the threats facing Australia are significant and constantly evolving. But you should be reassured that ASIO and our partners are still alive to the threats and we're working continuously to evolve to meet them. As a result of our actions over the last 12 months, it is no longer accurate to describe the levels of espionage and foreign interference as unprecedented. Our work has made a material difference to Australia's safety and security. But this isn't a declaration of victory, even less a mission accomplished. The spies I worry about the most are the ones I don't know about. Intelligence gathering requirements have not gone away during COVID. Indeed, we know some of our foreign governments desperately want to know secrets underpinning our medical and economic recovery. The spies will return with deeper cover, improved tradecraft, better technology at their disposal. As I noted earlier, the better we get, the harder it gets. And the challenges I've laid out tonight are making it more difficult for us to identify and counter these threats. But like the ASIO officers who have come before us, our staff are responding to this challenge with agility and ingenuity, and we are constantly honing our skills and approaches. Spies and terrorists should know this: we're looking for you. For the rest of the Australian community, you should know this: we're looking out for you. ASIO is your security service. Thank you. Thank you.